Welcome back, and joining me now is Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock of Georgia. He's the author of a new children's book. We're in this together, Leo's Lunchbox, a story about sharing. Senator Warnock, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Good morning. Great to be here with you on my way to church.
Well, thank you for stopping by. I know church is the highest priority, but thank you for making us a priority as well. We appreciate it. Let's start right off where I was talking with the speaker. One of the big issues in what is now officially called the Big Beautiful Bill Act is, of course, Medicaid. And he makes the argument people should have to work in order to get Medicaid benefits. What's wrong with that argument? Why shouldn't people have to go to work in order to get Medicaid?
Good morning again to you and your audience. Listen, I am a big advocate for work. I have a fierce work ethic. It was something passed on to me by my late father, who was a preacher and a junk man. And every day, you know, he was picking up old junk cars to feed our family. And on Sunday morning, the man who picked up cars that had been thrown away picked up people who've been thrown away. And this is what this legislation does, that they're trying to do. They're going to throw poor people away. I believe in work. And I recently released a study in Georgia that shows that this work reporting requirement, because that's what we're talking about, not work requirements, work reporting requirements is very good at kicking people off of their health care. It's not good at incentivizing work at all. There's something wrong-headed about this kind of view of poor people, of working class people, that somehow they don't want to go to work. We have seen this failed experiment in Georgia. We've got over 500,000 people in Georgia who are in the health care coverage gap. They are largely the working poor. The governor has put a program in place. He calls it prosperity to coverage. You ought to call it, or pathways to coverage. You ought to call it pathways or blockages to coverage because they've only enrolled about 7,000 people. That's pathetic. And the data clearly shows that if you want to get people to work, the way to do that is to provide them just basic health care so that they don't get sick. And what they're trying to do now is take this terrible experiment in Georgia, force it on the whole nation. And what we will see as a result of that is a workforce that is sicker and poorer and an economy that's weaker.
And we should note, actually, that Georgia is the only state right now with work requirements. I want to move on to another aspect of this bill. The bill allocates nearly $150 billion towards border security and immigration. Under this second Trump administration, border crossings are at some of their lowest levels ever recorded. Given that most voters, senators, say that this is a top issue, do you support the measures in this bill that would strengthen the border and border security?
Listen, I support strong borders, and we don't want to see people who are criminals, who are committing awful acts, allowed into our country. But what we need is common sense immigration laws in our country. What we are witnessing right now here in the state of Georgia, for example, a young college student who is doing well, has been here most of her life. She was accidentally picked up in a traffic stop. As it turns out, the police had it all wrong. They had the wrong person. But because of these draconian movements that we're seeing, this kind of singling out and othering people, this college student found herself in the grips of ICE. And now she's trying to navigate her way through the system. I don't believe that the people who voted for me and the people who voted for Donald Trump intended for this young woman who is a bright young woman who's already contributing to our society to be caught up in the clutches of our immigration system. This is the politics of fear and division and distraction, and it's because they know that their agenda, their economic agenda, is not working.
And just yes or no, do you support the provisions that would strengthen border security, or are you a no on this entire bill? Just yes.
Listen, I supported a bipartisan bill last year that would have strengthened our border. It was largely a bill focused on giving our Border Patrol the things that they needed. And the Republicans decided to kill it in order to put Donald Trump in office.
All right. Let me talk to you now about the state of the Democratic Party. As you know, there's been a lot of focus on former President Biden, the state of his health in the waning days of the campaign. I want to read you a statement from one of former Vice President Kamala Harris's senior campaign advisors, David Plouffe. This is from the new book, Original Sin, which takes a look at Biden's 2024 campaign. Plouffe says if Biden had decided in 2023 to drop out, we would have had a robust primary. Whitmer, Pritzker, Newsom, Buttigieg, Harris, and Klobuchar would have run. Warnock and Shapiro would have kicked the tires. Maybe Mark Cuban or a business person of some sort. 20% of governors and 30% of senators would have thought about it. We would have been eminently stronger. You were name checked there, Senator, so I have to give you a chance to respond. Would the Democratic Party have been stronger had President Biden dropped out of the race sooner or not run at all?
Kristen, here's what we absolutely know about last year's election. It's over. And I'm going to spend all of my energy focused on the task in front of us. We are headed into a very critical week. The Republicans are trying to push forward this big, ugly bill that's going to literally cut as many as 7 million Americans off of their health care. It is a drag not only on their health care, it's a drag on the American economy. They want to cut some $290 billion out of SNAP. This is an unfunded mandate at a time when Donald Trump's tariff tax is literally raising the cost of groceries. And so I've got my sleeves rolled up, and in front of me is the American people, the people of Georgia, and doing everything I can to save them from Trump's big, ugly bill.
I didn't hear a direct answer to the question there, but we do need to keep moving because we've got.
Well, I take very seriously my job. The people of Georgia hired me to stand up for them, and this really is a critical week. Yeah. This big ugly bill is going to strip people of their health care. It's going to rob working class people of the resources that they need. Yeah. They're literally trying to take health care from children. Here's a proposal. Yeah. How about allow the tax cuts to expire for people making over $500,000 a year? If they did that, they wouldn't have to have these draconian SNAP cuts and cuts on health care.
All right, let's talk about right now Maryland Governor Wes Moore speaking to South Carolina Democrats at a fundraiser on Friday. He gave this call to action to the party. Take a look.
Let's be clear. We can and we must condemn Donald Trump's reckless actions. But we will be foolish not to learn from his impatience. If he can do so much bad in such a small amount of time, why can't we do such good? Now is the time for us to be impatient too.
Senator, is Governor Moore right that Democrats need to take a lesson from Donald Trump and show more urgency?
Listen, I'll take my lessons from Martin Luther King Jr., who said that the time is always right to do what's right, who talked about the fierce urgency of now. And that's why I'm laser focused on doing everything I can for the people of my state, particularly children. You're looking at somebody who grew up in public housing, the 11th of 12 children, but through good government programs, Pell Grants, and low-interest student loans. Because of Head Start, which the Republicans want to cut, you're looking at someone who's the first college graduate in his family, the 11th out of 12 children, who's now a United States Senator. I'll tell you what keeps me up at night. Mm-hmm. It'd be harder for me to do right now what I did as that 17-year-old kid all those years ago. That is an indictment on this moment. That's an indictment on our leadership. Mm-hmm. And what the Republicans want to do this week will take us further back in the wrong direction, which is why I'm going to do everything I can, not only to save us from this awful bill, but to put forward programs like workforce development programs so that our children can find that their wings for their dreams. I want to do everything that I can for working class people.
Senator Raphael Warnock, thank you for stopping by on your way to church. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.